Our particular universe, our particular galaxy is a combination of 9 archetypes. So it is expanded in groups of 9 stars. Each star is home, an archetype of the Creator. So the sun is actually home to wisdom, one of the inherent characteristics. The other principal sponsor is love. Love is raw. Wisdom is law. So we are a raw, law dominant experience on Earth. We're in the geographic auspices of law, but yet raw is our principal sponsor. These are either an inherent characteristics or a distortion that was created in order to diversify the experiences available to the Creator. Earth has been considered to be a second chance planet, which means that all of the souls, all the people that are participating in the Earth experience have failed to graduate from at least one other third density experience. So we are at a transition point from the potential of remaining within the lower consciousness of this range of consciousness or moving on to the next higher range of consciousness. It's a matter of having fulfilled the curriculum necessary in order to do the work of the next range of consciousness.
Welcome everyone to Soul Communication. We're going to continue diving deeper into topics of consciousness. We are going to explore the enigma of consciousness and humanity's relationship to creation. Today, I'm excited to have an author, mindfulness meditation coach, and a spiritual teacher who has several books on this topic, Dean Graves. Welcome, Dean, to Soul Communication Podcast.
Thank you,
Happy to
Deanna.
have you.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me. I look forward to our chat.
I am as well. So, Dean, you've been on a journey, I'm imagining, for some time. And where you are today, we just stepped into 2025, which I feel is going to be a powerful year. What excites you about today?
What excites me about today is the changes that we're all experiencing and the culmination of why we're all here. Everyone that is experiencing Earth at this time wanted to be here. We stood in line in order to be here to experience this. And it's now upon us, and those of us that are guidance, information, whatever aspects that are required, are being called upon to fulfill our purpose in being here. So it's an exciting time for everybody.
So, what do you think that purpose is? What is really humanity's relationship to consciousness? What is this experiment all about?
As you well know, creation is infinite. What the Earth experience is one of a tremendous number, not infinite, but a tremendous number of planets that are experiencing a range of consciousness. We exist within a range of consciousness. And we have a specific curriculum that we are to fulfill in order to graduate from this range of consciousness. The purpose of all consciousness is exactly the same. There's no deviation. That purpose is to explore ourselves, and we do that by having experiences. We all have a unique mission, which is predicated primarily on what we like to do. When we do what we like to do, we become proficient at whatever it is that we like to do. And it is through the fulfillment of that mission that we have the types of experiences that we need in order to fulfill the curriculum and satisfy our purpose in participating in creation. So we are at this point at a junction, at a transition point from the potential of remaining within the lower consciousness of this range of consciousness or moving on to the next higher range of consciousness. And to a large degree, our moving on to the next level is at our discretion, but it's not a matter of deciding, yeah, I want to move on. It's a matter of having fulfilled the curriculum necessary in order to do the work of the next range of consciousness. And so this is like I hate to make the analogy of a test, but it's the end of the school year, and we're being tested to make sure that we've learned the curriculum adequately in order to do the work of the next range of consciousness.
Do you feel there is a certain amount of people, like a percentage of a collective, that needs to graduate that specific level for us to move forward? There is the group of people who are what I call the passengers in the car, who are still very much in the polarized reality and they're not interested in this movement forward in consciousness. And then those of us on the precipice of remembering our different lives, we opening all our clairanciences, and we are building this, what some might call 5D new earth reality. We are interested in moving to another plane of existence, so to speak, in the higher frequency plane. Do people move together, or will they deviate into different trajectories?
No one graduates as a group from this range of consciousness. Everyone graduates as an individual. Those of us that have been in this range of consciousness have been there for a long time, and they have been in that range of consciousness prior to their experience on Earth. Earth is considered to be, has been considered to be a second chance planet, which means that all of the souls, all the people that are participating in the Earth experience, have failed to graduate from at least one other third density experience. This is third density that we currently are experiencing. And so consequently, they have been grouped together, a total of 16 different failed groups. So we're like a reform school, and we've all been grouped together to hope that we could graduate to the next range of consciousness by interacting with each other. All of the people that we experience and over the course of our time on Earth are not in it to graduate. The majority of the population is in third density, trying to learn the curriculum and trying to graduate. Another significant part of the population are what is called wanderers, or Dolores Cannon called them volunteers. Different names, it's the same things. They're higher consciousness beings that have projected themselves as a third density participant into the population in order to be or serve as a guide or a model or a stimulus for the population to raise their consciousness and move forward. And in the early 1980s, there were approximately 67 million wanderers that were participating in the population. That population has decreased. It's down to roughly 6-7 million, but there's still a number of wanderers that are obviously participating. But that's greatly diluted when you consider there's roughly 7 billion people populating the Earth now. Part of the transition point that we're experiencing is that the population is splitting, and is often referred to as the planet splitting, but the planet itself is not going to split, just the population is going to split. The third density will continue. The previous third density experience concluded in February of 2016, and we started another third density population, and it was not noticeable by anybody on the planet, and that was intentional. But we also started a fourth density population, and the majority of the children that have been born since the mid-2000, 2005, somewhere in the middle of 2000, are actually fourth density children. And they are starting a fourth density population. The purpose of the wanderers was to serve as a stimulus or example for third density participants to emulate and to observe and to learn from. And that was moderately, at best, it was moderately successful. The overwhelming majority of the population still remains referred to as chaos. They haven't been able to move forward. They just cycle among the lower dimensions of the third density. And the hope is that the fourth density children will foster the next generation, which will be primarily third density children. So the fourth density parents will raise the third density children, and hopefully they will benefit from the higher consciousness association of the fourth density children to provide the necessary stimulus or motivation for third density to advance along its own path. The fourth density children, not all of which will be having third density children, but they will continue on their own path, and as their vibration continues to separate, will not they won't interact with each other. They'll be completely separate, and even though they're both considered to be on Earth, they will be completely separate and not interact with each other. But that period of time where they will be interacting, it's hoped that higher vibration of the fourth density children will serve as the stimulus for the third density to propel it forward, which it's had great difficulty doing over the course of time.
That's really beautifully broken down and what's happening, and then that's my perception of it as well. So thank you for confirming that. And I have not heard about the other 16, I think you said, failed attempts. Maybe you can zoom in what you're referring to that, because you were saying
there's 16 sources of people, souls, that have participated in other third density experiences and failed to graduate. That consists primarily of 3 major contributors and then 13 minor contributors.
Are you referring to the starseed races such as Arcturian, Pleiadians, Lyrians, or are you...
Now, most of them come from our galaxy. Arcturians and Pleiadians all come from our galaxy. They're all members of the same federation, and they all participate in the same archetypical structure that we do. One of the primary major contributors to the Earth population I simply refer to as the Zenoa Earth population, because they began their third density experience on Zenoa, which is the planet that we now call Venus. And they have gone from Venus to Maldak to Mars and relatively speaking, numerically, the number of graduates has been very small. One of the other major contributors has been from Deneb. Those actually were primarily populating the Asian segment of the population, and the others I've forgotten. They're just fellow participants in the creation process and have shared similar difficulties in graduating from their third density experience, and so they were just gathered together because we have minor graduates, not enough for a whole third density experience, but by grouping these different sources together, which has complicated the Earth's advancement to some degree, but not significantly. And the sponsors of the Earth experience, we are in the geographic area of one archetype of the Creator, and we are principally sponsored by another archetype of the Creator. And so there is a little bit of conflagration there of the tutorials and the experiences that we bring to mix. So there.
And what do you mean by the archetype of a creator? Maybe you can explain a bit more about that.
Okay. In the course of developing creation, let me briefly explain and ask questions if you want me to elaborate, but creation began because the Creator desired to know itself by experiencing itself. Mm-hmm. And so consequently, the Creator projected an analog projection of itself, which created the Creator as the subject. The Creator, the original outside of creation, is the Creator as the object. The analog projection is the Creator as the subject. And the Creator as the subject actually was made possible because it was distorted from the one infinite Creator by virtue of free will. Free will is a concept, and a misunderstood concept by most philosophers. It's not the decision whether we can turn right or turn left or go high or go low. It is a perception of separation. And it is only because we perceive ourselves as separate that we have choices. And so, having projected itself as an analog projection and distorted by that concept of free will, it began to develop creation in layers. The layers distinguished by the degree of free will intoxication. In other words, free will acts like an intoxicant. The more separated from the Creator you perceive yourself to be, the more it acts like whiskey, and you do stupid stuff that you wouldn't do if you weren't intoxicated. And the Creator is the object, is considered to be the eighth density. The Creator is the subject, intoxicated a portion of itself and created seventh density. Within seventh density, because of that additional free will intoxication, 5 inherent characteristics of the Creator became delineated. And those 5 inherent characteristics are considered to be archetypes. And all of the rest of creation is a further expansion and diversification by additional free will intoxication of those 5 inherent characteristics. The 7th density projected 6th density, and each descending layer is a fractal of the layer above. Within 6th density were created a number of other distortions that don't exist beyond or above midway in the 6th density. And those additional distortions are each archetypes, each in and of themselves archetypes, but they are mixed and matched throughout creation so that each universe, and a universe is a galaxy, each galaxy is a different combination of the archetypes, both distortions and the inherent characteristics. And our particular universe, our particular galaxy, is a combination of 9 archetypes. So it is expanded in groups of 9 stars. Each star is home, an archetype of the Creator. And so the sun is actually home to wisdom, one of the inherent characteristics. The other principal sponsor is love, and that is, they're identified as specific names. Love is raw, wisdom is law, and so we are a raw, law dominant experience on Earth because we're in the geographic auspices of law, but yet raw is our principal sponsor. And that's what I mean by an archetype. These are either an inherent characteristics or a distortion that was created in order to diversify the experiences available to the Creator. And we are in a 9-star galaxy. Arcturians are simply another 9-star sister system. The Pleiadians are another 9-star system, and they are just sister star systems that we are sharing the evolution through this process with.
You mentioned there are specific qualities that kind of descended down. What are those 5 qualities?
Well, awareness, love, wisdom, unity, and stillness. And they are hierarchical in our evolution, and the evolution is designed according to the order of the hierarchical order of the archetypes, only because it's necessary to build the 4 before you build the walls. You have to build the walls before you build the roof, and so forth. The 3rd density that we experience is tasked with becoming aware and eventually becoming awareness, which is our preparation for graduation to the 4th density, when that is tasked with the same process that we experience to explore love. In 5th density is wisdom, 6th density is unity, 7th density is stillness. And so each density is tasked with learning an aspect of the Creator, but you have to take them in sequence because you have to be aware before you can explore anything. And you have to have love to have that diversification. And this is not an emotion love. This is the inherent characteristic of the Creator, love. And so we're actually exploring the Creator as we explore ourselves and uncover that love aspect of ourselves.
Hmm. And for those who get sometimes confused between densities and dimensions, because often in the New Age community, everyone talks about 5D, maybe you can clarify for those listening when you're referring to densities, how different it is from the 5D or dimensional reality.
If you think of a density as a mile, a dimension is an inch. And so we are progressing through the densities or the dimensions of third density. It's hierarchical and it's necessary to achieve certain degrees of awareness and information to surrender false perceptions of self, surrendering our perceptions of separation to progress within the density. But we can go forward, we can go backwards. Once you graduate from density to density, you seldom if ever go backwards. But there's a lot of that cycling, particularly within our experience on Earth, is often just constant cycling among the lower dimensions of the density. For a variety of reasons, but that has been one of the problems. We've not been able to progress beyond, as a bulk, beyond the midpoint of the dimensions of the density. And that's demonstrated in behavior. Consciousness at any range will essentially behave the same. In other words, you could take a person in Earth that is having great difficulty in demonstrating very low consciousness characteristics, and by grace of the higher self, move them to a much higher density, and they would essentially behave the same. Even without the experience, they would behave the same as other consciousness of that level.
You mentioned awareness, so it does take that graduation and level of awareness and pattern breaking to move on to the next density. That's, I think, the evolution when we talk about ascension. It's not like we're going anywhere, but we're really just graduating through this level of awareness and embody that into this particular reality.
Yeah, in this range of consciousness, and there is specific criteria where we have to open our fourth metaphysical chakra, which is what you were going to be studying in the fourth density. We have to become awareness and other lesser criteria. Those are the primary curriculum fulfillments that we have to obtain in order to graduate. And this is the only range of consciousness that we have to graduate from. And it's because we begin as an individual and we conclude as an individual. The fourth density, we will begin where we left off in third density. So we'll begin as an individual, but in order to graduate from the fourth density, we have to form a social memory complex, which simply means that we significantly surrender our perceptions of separation. We no longer perceive ourselves to be an autonomous being, and our group that we will form then becomes our perception of self. But it's actually comprised of many souls. And that will be the pattern of further advancement through all of creation, with the understanding that we're surrendering this perception of separation, our free will, integrating more completely with the rest of creation until we eventually get to that point where we reintegrate with the Creator as oneness.
I mentioned to you before we jumped to record that I visit sometimes some ships, and specifically the Andromedan Council, where there is that hive mind mentality. There's no such thing as individuality, although there is, but it's more connected and telepathic in nature with the rest of the collective. So that's what you're referring to as we move through the densities. We're moving towards where Andromedans in this universe pretty high up in the density level of achievement, where they do operate as one collective.
Yes, it just our progression is our further surrendering of our perception of autonomy and integration with the whole. So the higher up that you go, the more the perception of oneness that you feel and live.
So, where are we getting stuck and not being able to move forward? I have my
There's the
perceptions of
question.
it in my observations and frustrations of why people are not able to anchor into the next levels. I feel a lot of it has to do with self love, but it's interesting to hear your description of the quality of love. Yeah, why are we so stuck? And I do feel like in the next 5 years, things will shift and we will be able to progress and the energies are supporting. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that.
There are a number of reasons why the population of Earth has had difficulty, not the least of which is our DNA has been manipulated. And because of that manipulation, we have large portions of the population, not the entire population, but the overwhelming majority of the population, by virtue of how genetics works. We have children and it passes along from generation to generation. But the DNA has intentionally been manipulated to keep us suppressed primarily by the Anunnaki and Metatron. They have been greatly involved and they don't want us to advance. Their objective is to keep us subservient because they require assets that we have, and they're not physical assets that we have. We have one of the primary decisions that we have to make in this range of consciousness is to decide whether we are going to polarize service to self or service to others. The service to others is choosing to align more closely with the Creator. Those choosing service to self are choosing to separate themselves from the Creator. In order to graduate from this range of consciousness, we have to virtually divorce ourselves from the source of vital energy that is provided to us constantly by our higher self. Now, if we're choosing polar service to others, then that is continuing and that enhances our alignment with the Creator. But if we're choosing our service to self, then we're choosing to sever that relationship, even though they will maintain the same higher self, but they're choosing to separate themselves from that source of energy. But they still need it. You can't continue in creation without that, and it's called intelligent energy. That source of intelligent energy. You got to figure out another way to get that intelligent energy, and the only other way to get it is to essentially steal it from those who have it. The third density, we in the third density have enough intelligent energy in order to make it worth our while to prey upon us to get the energy that they need. But we're not smart enough to know that we're not supposed to give it away. So we're like Goldilocks' porridge. It's the right temperature and there's enough of it, but we don't know we're not supposed to share it.
An episode right before you with Isabella Greene, who's a dear friend, and she wrote 2 books. One of them is called Leaving the Trap, and the second one is Beyond the Trap. Mm-hmm. And she does discuss specifically this topic of us getting stuck in this incarnation loop and about Loosh and all these topics of this energy that we are being harvested in some ways.
Yeah, it's a harvest. Every time that we get angry, every time we have a war, anytime we emphasize the fear that is an inherent part of our experience, then that liberates all of this intelligent energy. And they just gobble it up like it was free burgers at In-N-Out Drive-In.
You mentioned Metatron, and many actually think he is an angel that is of high accolade, but you've grouped him together with Anunnaki. Just to go back to Isabella, and what we talked about, her perspective on angels is that actually angels are part of this game. They are actually the ones who keeping us here in this matrix reality and tricking us to come back to Earth. So her perspective on angels is not the one that usually the New Age community puts out. So curious to hear about Metatron and your take on it.
Those polarizing service to others are forming social memory complexes and expanding their perception of self. And they form federations, they form working towards all unity and surrender of their perceptions of self. The service to self path also forms groups, but they're very transactional groups. In other words, if I can continue to get more intelligent energy by working with you, then we have an alliance. But as soon as I'm too big for you or you're not doing what I want to get from you, then we're no longer a group. And we break the band up and the band goes out on their own way. That's what the Anunnaki is. It is a transactional group that is an accumulation of several service to self consciousness ranges. The fourth density, service to self, are the minions that they do. They get out, knock on the doors, and sell the Tupperware. And as you go up the hierarchy, they benefit from all of the work. And the service to self functions based on domination and subjugation. And so it's mutually beneficial as long as everybody's getting what they need out of it. They're not bound together. The Metatron is the same. It's just another group. It's not quite as large as the Anunnaki is. But the Anunnaki and the Metatron are based out of the Orion group, which is the home for the service to self and our part of they don't want to eliminate third density. They want to perpetuate us in this source of energy. And so they want to keep us suppressed. They don't want us to advance, have their objectives. And so that's like they have us on a life support. They don't want to pull the plug. They just want to keep us on life support. But they are just fellow travelers. They're in the process just as the service to others path is. But the service to self path is considered an indirect path because they will go as far as they can by separating from the Creator until they hit a brick wall, and then they will have to go back and start all over again to follow the service to others path, to learn the path of the service to others. And they stay in their condition because of fear. They perceive that who they are is who they are, and if they're not who they are, that's scary, as it is for third density people. And so it's very difficult for them once they commit to that path to get off of that path until they reach a point of can't go any further. And so they may stay in that path for billions of what we perceive to be billions of years. As far as angels, they're not angels. There are higher consciousness beings that to us appear to be angels. We have higher selves, we have guides all along the way, but these are all our higher selves or our future self, as they describe it, that are guiding us.
So you believe that angels are just other beings in different densities that are part of this creation within the galaxy?
They still attain fourth and fifth, and in rare occasions, sixth density consciousness. But their motivation is not to aid us. Their motivation is to keep us where we are.
Manage us.
Manage us, exactly. Manage the flow of energy.
Or as Isabella calls it, they are the handlers. They handle.
They're handlers, yeah. The service to others are handlers too, but they're hands-off handlers because a significant awareness point for anyone along the evolutionary journey is to realize, and not just intellectually, but to feel that they are the one infinite creator experiencing itself at this range of consciousness. And once you achieve that awareness, and that's what it is, an awareness that you are the one infinite creator, you're not subservient, you are not some accident that is going through creation, you have a specific purpose. You are the one infinite creator experiencing itself at this range of consciousness. And it is it's intended to be a joyful experience. And the difficulty that we are having as third density beings on Earth is getting to that point where we realize that it's supposed to be joyful because of the stresses that we create for ourselves and perpetuate for ourselves.
Maybe that initial design of this body too, where the consciousness is limited in what it can do. And we also been conditioned in many ways through the system to believe that we are limited. We often forget that we are these incredible multidimensional beings that have infinite potential. We are quantum beings, we're light beings, we're sound beings. And even though we think our DNA has been tampered with, I did have also someone recently on a podcast talk about the 12 strands of DNA, that we actually are coming back into activating those strengths that are available for us if we have the awareness of how to do so and activating our Kundalini fields. I see it as humanity have incredible potential to be fully activated and consciously moving into next bandwidth of consciousness, like you said, graduating, if we choose, but we need to step out of that limitation.
Yeah, even more so than the DNA manipulation, the most part of our experience is the hegemonies, or the beliefs that we have accepted and expanded. And the majority of those repressive hegemonies are the gifts of the service to self individuals, even more so than the DNA manipulation. Because of those beliefs, we compound our perceptions of limitations. And that is we have no idea how powerful that we are, or how much we can achieve, or how much we can progress, as long as before we even get out the gate, we've decided that we can't do any of these things because our belief system.
Which is manipulated in many ways.
Well, they provide us with the seed, and then we grow the plant.
And it's comforting for the reptilian lower brain to be in a safe box, right? We always searching for safety versus the unknown, which is not necessarily a natural state for us because we're just not used to it. But it could be natural the more we courageous enough to open
Absolutely.
for exploration
Yeah.
of the unknown.
That's why it's an individual journey. We have to have our own awakening. We have to take care of our own hegemonies, our own beliefs, surrender those, and realize who we are and progress accordingly.
Yeah. It was interesting. I got to rewatch Interstellar. I don't know if you've seen that movie about the singularity. It's a well-known movie. It just came out again on, I think, Netflix. And it's really interesting to sometimes also see how we progress based on what we can understand. So years ago when it came out, I didn't understand the concepts that they were discussing, the metaphysics, the time, the singularity. And yesterday when I was rewatching it, it just all made sense. It was like, oh, this is exactly what's happening right now. We are on that trajectory of singularity. The guide, it's really us from the future that's guiding us in the now.
Right.
And it's all really our creation at the end of the day.
Yeah. Time is an illusion. Our experiences are actually parallel and not linear. And it's beyond our capacity to understand that. We're designed to process one thought at a time, so we perceive time to be linear. But all of our experiences are actually parallel. And creation is over. It began and it's over, and we're just filling in the blanks in the middle, because there is really no such thing as we perceive to be time. The singularity, from a cosmic standpoint, is we reversed from expansion to contraction. And if you understand that if you think of it like the Creator breathing, so the Creator was exhaling and now the Creator is inhaling. And then it will exhale and then it will inhale. And at each transition point from inhale to exhale and exhale to inhale is an opportunity for resetting. And that is an opportunity particularly for service to self that have far beyond our third density level, to transition back to service to others and begin the path over again. And so all sorts of opportunities, and we had a singularity not too long ago, so we are technically on what would be the inhale of creation, which will continue for a period of time and then reverse itself again.
You said there was a singularity event not long time ago. Which event was that?
I think it was. I'm not. Honestly, I'm not. I didn't. That wasn't one of the things that I thought was important because I didn't experience it. I was here with you guys in third Densities.
So here we are. We're playing this game in this galaxy, in this universe. What's your take on other universes? Because I know I've experienced some other universes, and the games there are very different, and often not even in physicality.
The purpose is all the same. There's no variety in the purpose. If you understand that it's easier to try to imagine our experience without one of the distortions than it is to try to understand what another distortion is. Because if you don't experience another distortion, you have no idea what it would be like. So one of the distortions that is inherent that we experience in this entire galaxy is motion. But motion is a distortion. So there are galaxies that don't experience motion. Now, try to imagine what life, how we would fulfill our purpose in creation, and how we would have lives without motion, and yet there are entire galaxies that don't experience motion. And that to me, that's mind-boggling, because every time that you think another thought, then you're experiencing motion because you've moved from one thought to another thought, which in and of itself is motion. So how do you experience creation without moving from one thought to another thought?
Essentially, the creator is creating different templates or different scenarios of exploring itself.
That's all it's doing. Yes.
In our galaxy, through motion, through magneticism, gravitational pull, whatever you want, all kinds of other ways of how we experience the dark, the light, the polarization, the duality, and others. The founding fathers, for instance, the feline founding fathers that I followed in one of my hypnosis session that I did for someone, I followed them to their universe. They didn't have duality there. It was a very different frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And their role is more seed in other systems. So they come in, come out, but it's just very different altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So each one feels like a different flavor. Like you go to a restaurant and you choose different menus, and it's like, how do you want to experience reality?
We experience 9 archetypes that creates all of the experiences within our galaxy. There are, my understanding, a total of 32 archetypes, 5 of which are inherent characteristics, 1 of which is free will, and the other 26 are all distortions, some of which distortions of distortions. But that notwithstanding, they are still archetypes. And part of what I've been given, there are galaxies that experience all 32 archetypes, and each one of those has to be balanced in order to go through the full creationary process in that galaxy. And so we've only got 9 to deal with. And if, again, you can imagine, as difficult as it has been with 9, having to balance 32.
Mm-hmm.
It boggles my little mind. It just beyond me.
Yeah, 369, right? That's what Tesla said. If you understand 369, you understand how this particular galaxy operates, but others operate very differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just much more maybe detailed in a way of how it plays that game. What do you think about Earth, not Earth, actually, the galaxy being a mirror of Andromeda? Have you ever got that information that we actually a mirror universe of another galaxy?
Everything is a mirror of everything else. It's the lens through which we see the mirror that changes. And so having a 9-star system galaxy is just a lens. It's just a means of looking at the same experiences. Andromeda is another galaxy that has another combination of experiences. We have, or archetypes rather, we're not a mirror per se, and I don't know for sure whether there are other galaxies that work off the same 9 stars combination that we do, but I know that every part of our galaxy operates under what is called an archetypical mind, which is a blueprint for how all the beings within this galaxy process thought. Now, I would well imagine that you could design another archetypical mind comprised of the 9 archetypes and have a completely different experience in another galaxy. So I would say it could be an exact mirror image with a different archetypical mind of how they process their thoughts.
Yeah. That's my recollection. That's what I put into my book, that we actually came, at least myself, I remember coming from Andromeda and with the long game that actually the two galaxies will merge according to astrologists and physicists in 4.6 billion, might be sooner than that, we'll see. And that's like the physical merge that will happen. But we are definitely low in density here than in Andromeda. I don't have exactly the number, but it feels like 15 and above in terms of levels.
And we're in.
Definitely.
Are you saying we're in the short bus here?
Oh, yes, we are. But that's part of the game. We came here as beings to explore this different type of, yeah,
Well,
game.
we go to other galaxies to experience other galaxies, send participants here to experience. Mozart was from another galaxy and just came for that incarnation to experience it. They focus much more on sound than
Mm.
what they do in this galaxy, and so there was that natural tendency on his part, regardless of his genius or mechanisms of learning from his father. His soul was predisposed towards sound. And so that's what he worked with, is sound. We just interpreted that as music.
I'm going to ask you about the Arcturians and sound because they actually love to work with sound as a healing technology as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not just Arcturians, Pleiadians, many of the higher dimensional beings. And I was mentioning to you that as I was on this cruise ship in Atlantic Ocean, I had an experience, CF5 experience with a Arcturian ship. It was a small ship with 5 beings. They showed me a device, kind of plasmatic and sound healing technology, and it showed how that particular device helps to synchronize and harmonize the body, knows quickly how to heal itself. How your experience has been with Arcturian beings, and have they also guided you on your path?
My principal guide has been the Raw group that is principally responsible with developing the Earth experience. My significant other is an Arcturian wanderer, and she is a vocal channel for the Arcturians. It's like they're one, they just talk as one. And the Arcturians have a ship that is not far away from Earth in which they reside and have been contributing. They have what they call pods that are attached to the ship, and they take you into the pod and you just feel wonderful, and you get out and you're all healed, and you come back and have to deal with the Earth population again.
Andromedans have pods too.
Yeah.
Actually, my Andromedan ship is in hibernation right now. They
Okay.
actually all
They're on
shut down.
vacation.
They're on vacation, yeah, since 3 weeks ago. They just shut down completely the whole ship too. Just checked on them today, and they still somewhat sleeping. They will be waking up soon. But that's kind of part of, they explained to me, it's part of their regeneration and reset, and it's part of how they maintain themselves in the higher density and physicality.
It's hard for them to maintain the physicality. The sixth density is not physical, and they're not shapeless either. They're consciousness patterns. Our metaphysical self in third density is a consciousness pattern in the metaphysical. It is formed as a consciousness pattern rather than the physical shape or the physicality. We just perceive it to be as such. But as you, fourth density will begin physical, but part of the graduation process is surrendering the authenticity of the physical. Fifth density is physical when they want to be. In other words, they can appear in whatever form that they need to in order to accomplish what they want to accomplish. But sixth density is no longer physical. There's no gender. It's just consciousness pattern.
Correct, yeah. And we get to see some plasmoids and some appearances right now in the sky. There's a lot of activity here in New Jersey. And I think that's another way they can show up here to awaken our awareness to the fact that we are not the only ones in this galaxy.
I get this from the Arcturians, is from with several other sources, that they've pretty well determined it's time for us to be integrated more with the universal population. And so they'll be easing us into that with appearances and non-threatening appearances and things of that nature in the very near future. And I understand that has already begun, but not to the degree that it very soon.
I think so. I think the disclosures, they talk about it, is happening already.
That's why they're taking a nap right now to get ready for having to deal with humans.
I don't know if these Andromedans are going to show up here. They on the quest to some anomalies. They just dealing with us from afar. But the Andromedan Council discusses Earth, of course, and they're part of the Galactic Federation, so they have a voice. You should be surprised of how invested everyone is in this project right now.
Yeah, I understand the Pleiadians will probably be the first to make physical appearances. So.
Yeah. Why do you think Pleiadians? Because they're more looking like us?
That's the plan, to make it less confrontational for us, that we get accustomed to them, and then they start introducing Cousin It and all the other members of the family that we might be.
The hybrid children too, I feel, based on my experience with the hybrid children, they too might be after the Pleiadians introduced to Earth, depending on how ready we are. And the plan is to integrate them actually into our society. So I actually seen visions of them being integrated eventually, and possibly even in my lifetime. So that I think all of this is going to be really speeding up.
Quick. Yeah, relatively speaking, very quick.
Relatively, yeah.
The velocity, I think, is going to depend on our reactions to it. The more accepting we are, the faster it's going to go. The more resistant that we are, the slower it's going to go. But it's going to go one way or the other.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dean. How can someone find you and your books? What's your website? What's the best way to contact
I have a website. It's just the initial Dean, DEAN, Graves.org. Dean Graves is just all one word. How you can contact me, the services that I offer. The most recent book is The Enigma of Consciousness, a spiritual exploration of humanity's relationship to creation. There's a link to that off of my website, but you can go to your favorite bookstore and order it if they don't have it in stock. It's commercially published. Amazon, I tell you, Amazon is cheaper. They have it cheaper there than they do at the bookstores. And I have 3 other books, depending on what your needs are. The Identity Model, Understanding and Healing Stress and Suffering. If someone is having a lot of physical or emotional difficulties, that's designed in order to be a healing tool book and understanding of the role of stress in our lives. So those are all available on our website or at your bookstore.
Thank you so much for this really interesting conversation. And before we go, is there a message from the Rock Collective for everyone as we wrap up this episode?
Their message is constant. We come in the love and the light of the one infinite creator and support you in your exploration of self and healing of distortions of perception. And that is every message that I've ever received from them, reiterated over and over.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. Thank you for having me, Deanna.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode. You can visit my website, deannadivine.com, where I'm now offering a special Quantum Master Creator free ebook that will help you to create the conscious dimensional life that you want. I'm also offering other programs, one-on-one sessions such as Quantum Healer Hypnosis and Quantum Crystalline Soul Healing to help you in your vibrational alignment. On sourcelanguage.org, I'm offering a digitized course that is self-paced to open you to the divine gift of light language. I'm Deanna Divine, and keep connecting with your higher self.